Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, I want to talk about this face-to-face with the developers, and I have a lot of strong feelings, and there's some major topics in here. There's armaments, crystal technology, and so much more. And I am going to not rant, but constructively provide feedback on a lot of these topics, and I'm going to shoot to the truth on all these topics. So if that's the sort of thing you like, consider subscribing. Definitely let me know your thoughts and comments down below, because, look, I gave feedback. You and I gave feedback, honestly. Let me not take too much credit. But recently, we gave feedback in a live stream. We wrote the letter together, and that feature got implemented in the game, which is absolutely amazing. That is resource nodes not spawning in Kingsland until after the Zig opens, because, like, it sucks to try to teleport into Kingsland, but you can't because there's resource nodes. Or, like, oh, there's this critical location, and if only people could actually teleport there to defend the flag, right? So, huge win that problem has been solved. We solved it together. So we're going to look through all of this and we're going to give real feedback. And why is it, by the way, that I am like a week late on this? So OmniArc made a video yesterday. The way I found out about this letter was because I saw OmniArc's video. So I reached out to the community managers. I was like, hey, so how am I supposed to find out about these face-to-face with the developers messages? Because, like, there is a tag, but I'm not getting it. Like, should I see this? And they were like, Chisgule, what if you actually, they were so polite, what if you actually select the role to get the notifications? And I was like, no shot, there's a role. Let me show you. Dude, it's right over here. It says role select. Did you know this existed? I didn't. But it's I've been in this Discord server for like 6 years. So this wasn't here when I got here originally. I never looked again for role select, but there's a role select. And so if you want pings about updates for the game, select that. GG, if you're getting value from this video, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. I mean, I bet you didn't know this. So now you do. Or if you did, you can just say, Chisgule, you're a noob in the comments. Maybe be a little more polite. You say, maybe you could take Chisgule, I knew about role select. All right. That's the better comment. Do that. All right. Let's go. And we got to have a real talk about this feedback, man. It is. There's things I got to say. All right. What are some future plans the Rock team can share with us? By the way, if I'm a community manager and someone actually asked that question, and I'm sure someone did, like, you pick that question because it's like, here's what I want to tell the Rise of Kingdoms community. So what they want to tell us is, currently we're introducing new formation switch feature. Okay, so this is really weird to me because formation switch feature, as of the time of this post, was already live. So either there's some new formation switch feature or conversion stones were in progress at the time that they drafted this letter and, you know, got it approved to then publish it on the site. I'm not sure which that is, but what besides a conversion stone, what would a formation switch feature be? You tell me, let me know down below in the comments. Shortening the idle period between KvK seasons. I love this, by the way. Bro, I love this. Look, KvK is the best part of the game. Hands down, no questions asked for most players. All right, there's going to be some comment that's like, it's not the best part for me. Okay, well, for the minority of players who don't think it's the best part, okay. But for the majority of people that are here for KvKs, this is really hype. They want to shorten the idle time between KvK seasons. And I gave the feedback a long time ago. I was like, hey, look, you can either come up with some activities to like make us entertained between KvKs, or just make it so we can genuinely enter KvKs more frequently, which means several things. It means make it easier to get resources, make it easier to get speed ups, make it easier to recover troops. It means make it so that KvK is not such an intense fighting, such that, like, you've got to take 3 weeks of vacation to like fill forts with your farms for 3 weeks, right? Like, make it so that you can have more KvKs. Because whatever you do with KvKs is almost guaranteed to be better than whatever you do to try to entertain us in off-season. So rather than, like, invent a new game mode as fun as KvK, what if you just give us the ability to genuinely play KvKs more frequently? Everybody wins. They're also releasing new large-scale multiplayer battle mode. So, on the topic of new game modes, I will say this: in Call of Dragons, they released a new game mode. It's a 15 versus 15. It's like a 10-minute, 15-minute quick battle, and it's so fun. It's so fun. It's just straight PvP, very simple, mostly about smashing enemies. There's a few objectives, and it's so fun. It's very fun. It's like the PvP we needed. And, like, yes, bro, How did it take this long to figure out to do that? Do that in Rise of Kingdoms. So good. Yes, very happy. So hopefully we get that, and that'll be really cool. Updates regarding armaments are also on the agenda. Yeah, I mean, the issue with armaments is randomness, because even when you get lucky, you can still be a loser. And like, that's the issue with armaments, among other things, I guess. There's more, because some players mentioned that the armaments obtained from bundles do not provide any improvements to their power. Bro, I make a video about armaments, and like, people watching, first of all, people don't watch those videos. And shout out if you do, I appreciate your support. But second of all, it's not fair to say that nobody watched them. They just are less popular than literally any other topic. Like, if I make a video about armaments, it's not popular. It should be one of the most popular things we're doing is armaments, and it isn't. So that's the sign. But this is so true that like, you can spend money and feel like you got nothing. And the thing about armaments is the randomness, because the way this is like, okay, I know I keep going on tangents, but like, when I was in college, my best friend said, Chisgule, you must take an intro to psych class. Once you take intro to psych, you will never see the world the same way again. And it's so true. So there's something in psychology called a comparison other. Who do you compare yourself to? The people that you compare yourself to with your armaments is the people who are 1% lucky. Because when there's randomness, there's a curve of people who are like super lucky and super unlucky, okay? And you're going to compare yourself to the people that are bragging about how good their armaments are. And like, I've seen free-to-play players that are like, look how busted my armaments are. Sucks to be you. And like, true, they're right. So you're going to compare yourself to the luckiest person out there, which means 1% of people are going to feel like, oh, my armaments are pretty good. And 99% of people are going to compare themselves to the person who got super lucky and think, man, I got shit luck. Even if they didn't. Even if they're in the upper 50% of luck, they're going to look at the person who's the top 1% of luck and go, man, I'm getting wrecked here. And that's the issue with the randomness in armaments. I would not put randomness into these progression systems. I don't know when we're going to stop doing that, but I hope it's soon. To address this, we're exploring a new feature similar to transmutation. So that's interesting, because like, we already have transmutation. What will be similar to transmutation that's not transmutation? And forging for armaments. Here's what I think would potentially come into the game. First of all, forging is really interesting. I wonder how that would work, where you could actually like pick and choose what you're getting. But it is smart that they're looking at like, oh, the equipment system people are okay with. Like, what if we make armaments more like equipment? Yeah, okay, seems good to me. But the transmutation bit, I wonder if that's like a way to incrementally improve the stats on an armament. And I bet you that's what it is. And, you know, I think if you look in this genre across all the games I've played, I think this is the only one that has this like level of randomness for progression. And, you know, over the course of like a gazillion attempts, like, yeah, you average out. But the problem is that people look at a much smaller scale. They look at the scale of, I bought something right now, did I get an upgrade? And when you need to average out over the course of a gazillion attempts, there's the issue, right? So, yeah, dude, randomness is the most dangerous thing to possibly play with in a progression system in this genre. Anyways, we're also reviewing the effects of crystal technologies in Season of Conquest and considering for... Bro, so the most frequent comment I got about crystal technology was actually on my last video, where I pointed out like, hey, in a live stream together, like I was feeling frustration that I couldn't teleport somewhere because of resource nodes. And there were these spots that were like critical to the KvK. And it's like the resource nodes won the KvK. Straight up, the resource nodes were winning the fight. And it's like, okay, so what if resource nodes don't spawn in at the start of Kingsland and they do spawn in after the Zig is captured, like when the fighting's probably over? And we came up with that solution. We drafted a letter, politely presented it, and like, boom, got put in the game. Huge. But anyways, in my last video where I was talking about this stuff, this was where you guys said the biggest issue is crystal technology, and the biggest issue is they pushed KvKs back. And because they pushed it back, like, we need more crystals. And like, there's a pretty obvious reason. Like, looking in, like, it's pretty obvious to say like, well, now you got to spend more on crystals if you want the same amount of technology. Like, the motivation there is like pretty clear, I would assume. And I'm not like, I mean, I would be insulting your intelligence to say anything else, right? But I think this is such an interesting question, because the simplest thing they could do is just pull forward when KvKs happens, and like, that would satisfy a lot of players. But I don't think that's necessarily the best solution. Like, I think the fact that they're reviewing crystal technology could even just be better than that, because I think they're right. Like, what needs to be optimized about crystal technology? And now we get down to like the brass tacks of like, what's the real about crystal technology? And this is another one of those systems where like you spend money on something, but you may or may not feel the benefit until later. And that always creates kind of weirdness. So, you know, the permanent effect of crystal technology is you get season coins, and those season coins you can spend on stuff, which does in fact give you power. But because that's like a second degree consequence of buying crystal technology, and the first degree consequence is like you're actually more combat effective, which you don't even see right away if you're not fighting, right? So like the problem is that the felt upgrade takes too long with crystal technology, in my opinion. And the permanent benefit also is like incremental, and you may or may not feel right away. And this gets back to like Psych 101, which is the concept of loss aversion. So the fundamental flaw with crystal technology is that it's taken away later. So even if you pay for it, you feel like you're losing something at the end of the day, and like you paid for something you lost, even though that's not necessarily true because you got season coins. Those season coins give you account progression. And so the psychology concept here is that like, in order to exceed the loss felt, the value gained has to be super high, like super high. So anyways, I don't know. I'm not trying to rant. What I'm trying to say is that I'm really glad they're looking at crystal technology. That was like your number one feedback on my prior video. And although I think they could do something as simple as move KvKs forward, and everybody would be certainly happy about that change. Because like, of course people are saying like, why is KvKs level 3 now after Kingsland's over, or whenever it is, right? Like, because the fight already happened. So I get that. And I love that they're looking at crystal technology, because I think if we start to design, that implies they didn't, but like, if we reevaluate all of these systems with satisfaction and fun in mind, I wonder what they will come up with. Respectfully. Are there plans to merge multiple kingdoms in the future? I'm going to be real with you. I've been very against this, and I think I'm very for it, but with a huge caveat. So what do they say? As the game continues to operate, the gap in the number of active players between kingdoms is increasing. Some kingdoms have difficulty organizing enough players to participate in Ark of Osiris, KvK, and other gameplay. In recent offline meetings and in-game surveys, governors have expressed desire to merge servers. We also believe that merging servers can alleviate this issue to some extent. However, given Rock's unique social environment, we'll do our best to avoid merging servers through mandatory assignment of players by the system. I don't know what that means. How's that different than a merge? The plan is underway, and when it's complete, we will announce it through... They already have a solution. We will announce it through a face-to-face with the developers and other forums. We look forward to your feedback. Bro. All right, let me give feedback. So the issue with merging kingdoms is like, you've got all this nuance to like, who's the king? How's the kingdom run? Et cetera, et cetera. But in this genre, kingdom merging is pretty common. And the issue is that kingdoms are losing activity. In fact, the issue goes so much deeper than this. The issue is that I genuinely cannot tell you right now what a kingdom is supposed to be. I'm serious. What is a kingdom supposed to be? Is it supposed to be one alliance? Is it supposed to be two alliances? Like what actually is a kingdom supposed to be? I could not tell you, genuinely. What is the intended size for a kingdom? I have no clue. And that's not in a disrespectful way. That's just like as a player, I have absolutely no clue what the intended size of a kingdom. Like, should we have many alliances or not? I don't know. So if the intention is to have many alliances, and if the question is, does a many alliance kingdom make for a better kingdom experience, right? Like, peel the onion back, man. Peel the onion back. So if we get to the brass tacks, like, what is the most fun? A kingdom with 4 to 8 alliances like we used to have, or a kingdom with 1 alliance like we have now. And in this case, they're saying we don't even have 1 alliance in a lot of kingdoms. I think merging is almost certainly necessary, but that is a solution, and there are probably many to this problem of kingdoms are getting too small. And I don't think that just making a war camp with like 3 dozen kingdoms is the solution. I think if the devs get an honest look, as I'm sure they're doing, at like, hey, what actually is a kingdom supposed to be, and then they start working to that, that'd be good. And they're probably already doing that. They're just not talking about it. As they say, the plan is underway, and I hope they've considered what I just said. What strategies are in place to encourage more players to return to Rock? I think this is a great question. Generally, I think they just push the marketing, and like maybe that works. But we've been enhancing the bonuses for returning players and addressing issues raised by the community by introducing the Legendary Commander Swap and Passport page, automatic restock features. We aim to provide a better experience for returning players. So what they just said is, we're trying to solve the problem of a returning player feeling like they're behind on commanders. And what they also just said is, we're trying to solve the problem of like a returning player not being able to go to their desired kingdom. I do think that they need to push further on that. Like, when I come back to the game, I shouldn't have to spend hundreds of dollars on passports to go to a kingdom. And I don't think you do, but, you know, like, it needs to be free. It needs to be free when you return to the game to go where you want. It does, right? Like, I mean, if it means the player comes back to the game, that's worth it, right? That's like super, super worth it. And I don't know how Legendary Commander Swap event works if you missed it. Like, that might have just been good marketing in the form of like, oh yeah, people came back now. But like, shouldn't every player returning to the game potentially be able to do a swap? And I know that what I'm proposing might create the strategy of like going idle for 30 days and coming back. So you got to find the right balance, but like, make it compelling. It's worth it. Additionally, we've been regularly releasing special events that provide incentives for governors to invite their friends. Yeah, I think they got to keep doing that. They have to keep doing that. Like, look, if I were running marketing, what I would test is, hey, what if we give people the ability to switch their equipment to new equipment types? Would that bring players back to the game? And if the answer is yes, which it should, like, hey, did you used to play Rise of Kingdoms? Did you know we got this ranged combat thing now? You should try it out. I mean, if ranged combat isn't fun, they shouldn't have put it in the game, right? So it's got to be fun. It's got to attract new players, right? So if that's true, market it. And if it's not true, fix it. Anyways, yeah, cool. Many players develop their accounts on old servers before immigrating to new ones, disrupting the game balance. Yeah, it's a huge problem. How do you view this issue? Yeah, so I love jumper group culture, but I hate the jumper group implications. The implications of a jumper group is that by meticulously not playing the game for like months on end, and then in a week of like insane preparation, you can outperform anyone who doesn't know how to play the game. Like, that's a shitty new player experience. Like, you should be able to just like, what if you could actually just download the game and play it? That's the issue, right? And the jumper group culture I love, but the problem is that it creates a situation where you can't just download the game and play it. You need to like learn, you know, abstract, inverse, upside down calculus of like the jumper process in order to exploit all those systems to feel like you're competitive. I'm like, okay, that's got to get addressed, right? It just is what it is. Beginner's immigration was originally designed to allow new players to play with their friends. And that's how that should be, right? We're aware that some players, I don't know how much it is, are using this feature to gain an advantage in new servers. We'll review it to ensure a fair gaming environment. I mean, what I think is that you don't want to destroy the spirit of jumper culture and group start culture, but you do want to address the issue of like, can I actually just download and play the game, or do I get wrecked for doing it? That's the question. I don't have the answer. Will the combat experience on mobile devices be optimized? While Rock is designed to be a mobile game, the KvK experience is much better on PC. Big true. And I feel like they've done a lot, though, recently to make it better on mobile. Through recent updates, we introduced several features such as quick command and filter mode to improve the combat experience on mobile devices. We'll continue. Good. I mean, I don't know what else you could expect them to say. Like, yeah. And I think they do need to continue. Like, I can't remember what, but there were some things I tried to do that were like really awkward on my mobile device. And I was like, go, come on. That like, I didn't mean to do that. And I did. I feel like one of those things is like, we need a button that's like, send my troops home. I feel like that's a thing we need for mobile fighting. like full retreat all armies, so that I can like tap an enemy and then tap full retreat, tap an enemy, tap full retreat. That's like the cycle of field fighting. But like somebody needs to genuinely study open field fighting and really, like the real, like genuinely play it, genuinely deeply understand the mechanisms of fielding on a PC and emulate that on mobile, and like understand the gap and hit the gap and just crush it. And it sounds like they're on their way to that. Will there be more long-range units? Currently, there are too many of them. Oh boy. And it compromises the combat of Rock. We got to talk about this. Players prefer to attack with long-range units, and it can easily spoil the fun. I think that Rise of Kingdoms ranged combat is a really weird thing. And I don't know if it's a ticking time bomb or not, but let me explain. So what you quickly learn from ranged combat is that when there's a stationary fight and the up close folks are fighting like this, the tower's set up back over here and they just sit there free shooting. So now, as we know, up close fighting is actually a lot of like back and forth and 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 back and forth. And like, that's the whole point, is like attack, retreat, attack, retreat, attack, retreat, which like fundamentally the developers should maybe look at that to say like, is that what we want meta to be? But the point I'm making is that while you're spending half your time retreating and half your time going forward, actually attacking something, those siege towers are just sitting there shooting the whole time. Okay, so they get double the effective DPS window of every other march on the field. Well, double the DPS window is insane, which means you want as many siege marches as possible, actually, without sacrificing the upfront armies such that your siege armies are now all exposed. Which means there should be even more siege and more siege and more siege. And the meta of the game might actually be, if there are too many siege armies, no up close marches at all. Do you see what I'm pointing to as a potential weirdness here? So if the meta becomes no close combat marches at all, 100% siege, is the game better? If infantry, cavalry, and archers are only used for rally garrison, and I'm actually asking, like, what would make your kingdom stronger? Is it all siege? Because it might be closer to that than you'd think. Now, if that is true, is that spoiling the fun? I think that ranged combat is something that needs a very close look at. And the only reason we haven't felt the consequence of this immediately is because it actually does take time to make the equipment and get the armaments and even train the siege units. Because for literally years, kingdom leaders have been telling me anyways, delete all your siege, bro. Right? I mean, if you're in a even semi-meta kingdom, they're telling you to delete your siege. Right? And a meta-adjacent kingdom is telling you to delete their siege. So the only reason this is not felt more is because there's a barrier to actually doing it. But if that barrier were completely removed, I genuinely wonder what this would look like. And I'll say this, in Ark of Osiris League, we don't see it. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not actually the thing. But in KvK fighting, we see it all the time. And I think that's different because in Ark of Osiris, you don't care about your trade, you just run it down. Whereas in KvK, you do the literal, like 100 million hours of gameplay of like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to try to like maintain your position in a line. And that's where those range towers they are just doing full DPS when you're doing half. And that's how it gets cooked. So what's their answer? We're still preparing new engineering commanders, which makes it even more likely that the scenario I'm presenting is a reality, right? But with caution and focusing on balance of power and battlefield. In fact, we have been closely monitoring the battlefield performance of long-range units and have noted some of the issues and concerns raised by governors. There you go. In the future, we will continue the adjustments to long-range units to achieve relative balance between long-range and melee in the battlefield. So the thing that Cortex pointed out to me, and I've been kind of saying recently, because I'm like, yeah, he's right, is there's no counterplay. The only counterplay to ranged units is the King skill that like counters ranged units. That's like the literal only counterplay in the game. So there's actually zero counterplay to what I have described, where in what I think might be a meta world, you move very far away from any frontline units at all. And the only thing stopping that is the the speed to transition to that being the world we're in. I think that's it, man. Which means the developers have time to figure out what they're going to do about it. But like, and also I could just be wrong. I could be flat wrong about that view of the world. But I actually think I'm not wrong. I think that like, if you could wave a magic wand and anyone could switch to anything they wanted, and a bunch of people had this siege stuff, that you would see like a lot of siege, almost to the point where it might, once there's enough commanders for it, achieve a break point where there's mostly siege and mostly not anything else. But I don't know. That's my tinfoil hat insanity mode kicking in. And by the way, see, that was the tag I was missing, was dev feedback, right? They tagged everybody. I'm just a bozo for not having signed up for the role. GG. So thank you for attending my TED talk about the state of Rise of Kingdoms. This actually like is a really, really good letter. And it's long ago in the past, I felt like they would give us these Q&As where it's like, why is this the question you're giving us? Why is this like, nobody cares about this. And like, okay, I didn't care about those things, but they're using these Q&As to talk about like real matters here. And they're giving us a big window into things that they're looking at. And I think it's really good that they're looking at these things. And, you know, like, whatever. I mean, I pat myself on the back and say I've been talking about these things for a while, but like whatever flipped, like for the last 9 months, the developers have been genuinely looking very closely at player feedback and making adjustments, and it is all W's. And the fact that they're looking at all this stuff is really good. Like, what if the developers actually locked in wins on all these things? Just like they've been doing with all the other stuff they've been talking about recently. I'm serious. Like, this is really promising. And so although I really, like, I don't know, I hopefully I don't, get in trouble for tearing in too much, but like, I think if they actually address all this stuff, game state will continue to get better and better in a way that honestly will bring people back to the game. And you want to know the real secret to getting players to come back to the game? Do you know what the real secret is? The real secret. I'll let you in on it. I mean, this is like, I know this is like really going to sound crazy, but you just make the game really fun. Right? And I said this like 6 years ago. I was like, every update should just focus on what is fun. And if you make it fun, people are going to throw their money at these systems. Okay? Like, you will not have people saying, I felt like I got nothing. You will have people saying, I wish I could spend more on these things. I'm serious. If the systems are fun and they're so fun, like all these problems solve themselves in terms of like recruiting, marketing, the whole customer service, the whole 9 yards, in my opinion. Call me crazy. And I'm not saying the game isn't fun. I've been playing for 6 years. Of course I'm having fun. But like, the more you push that, in my opinion, the better. All right, it's enough of a TED Talk. You can watch my last video, though, if you want to see me talk about the other stuff. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I really appreciate the fact that, like, I can talk in front of this mic for way too long, like 29 minutes. This is the secret call out to subscribe if you've made it 29 minutes into the video. GG, I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for letting me do this. Until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everybody.